Wow. That stack bounced. Some very bouncy books. Hello! How are you all? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Peyton, and today we're going to talk about the 25 books that are on my 2025 physical TBR. These are books that I already own, that I've owned. Some of these I've owned for a while. Some of these were newer purchases last year that I haven't gotten around to, and I want them to be my priority for this year. The idea being that towards the end of the year, I can look back on this video and look at my progress, because one of my goals this year is to finish every single book on this TBR. And when I started pulling all these books, I made the TBR. I knew what it was going to look like. It's in my reading journal. I've been thinking about it. Anyway, I was pulling all the books physically, and a lot of them are enormous books. A lot of them are in fantasy series. First books in fantasy series. And I'm going to start talking about my goals. My reading goal this year is 100 books. I hit 97 in 2024. I had a really bad reading slump in that year. It had to do with a multitude of factors that I'm hoping to avoid this year. I'm giving myself grace to DNF books. I don't like DNFing books because I feel like I didn't finish it, so I can't really give it a good review. But I think the fact that I didn't finish it is enough of a review, and I don't want to put myself in a reading slump, and I don't want to read books that don't bring anything to the table or don't do anything for me. If I don't like it, I'm going to DNF it, and that's okay. The next goal I have, really read down my TBR, limit my new purchases, utilize the library more. I've already made a really good start to that this new year, and I'm super proud of it. I also want to reread a book every month from my favorites. I always say that I only keep books I want to reread, so I really want to put that to use this year. I'm not going to pick like a TBR for that because I want it to be more fluid and mood reading. The idea is to read a book every month. That'd be 12 books. If I read more than that, awesome. If I don't, I'm going to be mad at myself. There's a book on this TBR specifically that requires me to reread some books, and I'll get to that one when we get into the 25 books. Oh, and I made a TBR jar. My Hello Kitty jar. These are full. I don't even know, I didn't count, but these are full of every single book I own. The colors don't mean anything. Pretty sure I'm going to start a series of me reading down my TBR. I haven't thought of a name yet, so I'm trying to think of a fun name that would be reading down my TBR. If you have any ideas, put them down below. That would be great. But the main goal I have this year that has to do with reading is I want to be obsessed more. I want to be obsessed with what I'm reading. Most recent examples, I was so obsessed with Empire of the Vampire and Empire of the Damned by J. Kristoff. Like, took over my brain the last 2 months of the year. And the new one is coming out hopefully sometime this year. He keeps teasing about it on his Instagram, so I'm hoping. But I want to be obsessed so badly with the series. So there are quite a few fantasy books on this list that I'm hoping that will do it. Okay, but that's all my goals. I guess we can jump into the TBR. They're not in any type of specific order except for the first stack, which is fantasy series, and hopefully get hooked on. I'm putting a lot of pressure on these books from other creators that I follow, and they're talking about their favorite fantasy series. One, if not all of these are on their list, so I'm super excited about it. The first book being was a big hit last year, and I've held off reading it mainly because the second book is coming out in the next few months, May I think, or June. And the first book of my TBR is The Will of the Many by James Islington. This is book 1 in the Hierarchy series. Blanket statement. I haven't read these books, so I'm not going to go too far into depth with any of the synopsises. I'm just going to give what I know about them and what drew me to it. So this is a Roman-inspired fantasy/science fiction that has to do with people's will. Like, there's like a pyramid scheme involved, and there's a dark academia element of it. I know the main character is like a spy in the academy, which I think is really cool. I've not read James Islington. I've heard this book is just unputdownable and just so good. Everything works so well. This one is a 5-star prediction for me. I cannot wait to read it this year. I'm very, very excited. This one I don't see a lot of people talking about. The only reason I heard about this is because one of my favorite booktubers and book talkers, Tori Morrow, she posted something about it, some video about it, and the premise sounded so freaking cool that I had to go out and get it. That's The Helm of Midnight. So shiny. I hate these shiny book covers. The Helm of Midnight by Mariana Lotzstetter. This has to do with a mask. This has to do with a heist where a mask was stolen. Masks in this world can be imbued with the spirit of whoever wore it previously, and this one was a serial murderer who terrorized the city a long time ago. That, I was like, sold. I don't care. I don't care. I want to read it. And the series is called The 5 Penalties, and I think the 3rd book is also coming out this year. So I have book 1 and book 2 to read. I don't know, it seems very complex, but I'm hoping it's really bingeable in that there's like, I think there's horror elements in it that I'm super stoked about. And I love the cover. Sans the shininess. The cover is freaking sick. Okay, this one I'm very excited about because I've only read one other book by this author, and it was more of like a literary thriller. I've not read any of their fantasy, and I actually 2 of these authors' books on my TBR, and another author. I also have 2 books on the TBR. The first book I want to talk about is Poppy Wars by R.F. Kuang. I previously read Yellowface last year. I really, really loved it. I think she has a great writing style. The only thing I know about this one is very highly contested, which I thought was surprising because I only heard good things about it up until I think Book Talk came around. It's a grimdark fantasy, which I have previously talked about. I really like grimdark because it's more in line with my personal taste of like pretty horrific, reading horrific horror and then blending that with fantasy and having a pretty dark story. This draws plot points and politics from mid-20th century China, with the conflict in the novel based on the Second Sino-Japanese War, an atmosphere inspired by the Song Dynasty. That's really all I know, and I know a lot of people don't like the main character. That's really all I know because I think she's really unlikable, but I think R.F. Kuang, from what I also read, I think R.F. Kuang wrote her to be unlikable. You're not supposed to like her, I think in the first book at least. I have all 3 books in my physical TBR. I'm hoping if I like it, the first one, I can just go straight into the next 2. That's The Poppy War. Next is Malice by John Gwynne. I know another one of my favorite book talkers, Sid. I think this is her favorite fantasy series to date, and she described it a lot like Skyrim or anything like the Elder Scrolls. I'm currently replaying Oblivion and having a blast. So a book that it has similar vibes to that. I can't wait. I'm so excited. I'm hoping to inhale this like everyone I know who has read this has. I think it's Nordic inspired. There's a lot of war, a lot of characters, and this is part of the Faithful and the Fallen series. I think there's 4 books in this series. And of course, this has to be on my list because I really want to read Stormlight Archives, but according to Brandon Sanderson, the place to start first before you jump into the big time commitment and just big commitment that is the Stormlight Archives is to start with Mistborn. This is book 1 in the original trilogy. I know there's this one and then the other one, the Wax and Wane trilogy, that's also called Mistborn. I could be wrong. It is a high fantasy, and I know there's a really unique magic system that has to do with metals and working with metals. I obviously haven't read it. I really like these paperback covers, and the original ones, I'll put it right here, the original ones I really love. The hardback of like the first editions I think are really, really cool. So if I like these enough, I will probably go after these, but I am a paperback girly through and through. On my way to get to the Stormlight Archives, I'm reading Mistborn. And this one has been on my TBR for a very long time, and I'm embarrassed that I haven't read it. This one is most likely going to be my priority fantasy series in the beginning of the year, and that's the 5th season by N.K. Jemisin. I think she won the Hugo Award for all 3 books in this trilogy, which I think is really cool. I know it's very emotional, and the characters are really well done, and it revolves around this world where there's a 5th season where the world starts to break apart and our main character has powers that can mend it. Something like that. I've just heard really good things about N.K. Jemisin's writing. I've not read any of her other works, so I'm super, super excited to get this. And I've always liked these covers of all of them. I don't know why people don't like them. And this series is called the Broken Earth trilogy. Okay, moving on. There's still some fantasy on here, but I'm gonna move on to some other reads that have been on my TBR for a while now. And that is Bright Young Woman by Jessica Knoll. This is, I think, this is loosely inspired or primarily inspired by, what's his face? He's not even important to remember. And I think that's like the whole point of this book, that the women in this book had so much in front of them and they were squashed by, oh my god, why am I blanking on his name? Ted Bundy. The judge in the case made a comment that he was such a bright young man, he had such a future, why'd he have to do this? Something like that. The women in the case, their stories and their lives were completely missed by the public, and everyone focused on this dashing, attractive, well-spoken man. He was an idiot. I don't know why why people are so obsessed with him. He was a creep and an idiot. Anyway, so I'm very excited to read this. I am a little nervous about it because I feel like it's gonna make me really emotional, which is good because I gravitate towards emotional books, but I don't know, I'm a little nervous about this. And I keep thinking, is this Sharon Tate? Is this Sharon Tate? Like, I keep thinking this is Sharon Tate. It like looks like her eyes and her makeup. Pop her face. I mean, also someone who was taken from us way too early, but like, I don't know. I could be completely wrong, but I always think this is Sharon Tate. Does it even say? It doesn't even say, but I don't know. I've always thought that when I've seen this cover. I love the colors on this cover so much. Okay, this one comes with a very big asterisk, because I really do want to read this. I've had this probably since it came out in 2017. I don't think this works primarily as a, because what I've read, oh my god, I'm like tail spinning. It's Column of Fire by Ken Follett. This is book 3 in the Kingsbridge series, or just it's called Kingsbridge. The 2 books in the series I have read, I read them pretty much back to back, was Pillars of the Earth and World Without End. Pillars of the Earth is in my top 10 favorite books of all time. I adore that book. I cannot express how amazing that book is. Like, amazing, amazing, amazing. And it all centers around the building of this church in medieval times. It's been so long since I've read it, and I've been wanting to reread it, that and World Without End, because World Without End is technically a prequel, and this is after the building of the church. But I think the newest one, and I can't remember the name of it right now, I'll put it up right here, I think it's called The Armor and the Light or something, is a prequel as well. So this one comes with a very big asterisk because I want to reread Pillars of the Earth and World Without End. Apparently the best way to read them is in publication order, which is weird. But that's what I'm going to do. They're all very long books. Very, very long books. This one is around 900 pages. Pillars of the Earth is over 1,000. World Without End is about the same length. And Armor and the Light, I think is around the same length as well. When I read Pillars of the Earth, I was in high school. I read it in 4 days. I could not put that book down. It was all I thought about. So just to be back in this world with these his amazing character work and just such great storytelling that you are hooked from the first page up until you close it and you miss the characters. I cannot wait. I cannot wait, but this one is a big asterisk. Like, I hope I get to it. I really hope I get to it because I need to get to it now. If not now, I don't know when. Alright, another fantasy series, but this is a duology and it's finished. I have both books. So I would really like to read it. This One Dark Window by Rachel Gillig. I think this is this Dark Academia? It's gothic fantasy. And I know what the magic system has to do with cards that are similar to tarot cards, and like the main character is a monster, or she has a monster inside. I don't know. A lot of people I know who have read this have really liked it. I'm hoping it's very bingeable, and I'm hoping I can read book 1, if not book 2, this year. I would like to read them back to back. That is the goal of when I start a series, I would like to go straight through it. It doesn't always happen, but I'm hoping that'll happen. Oh no, they're falling. No. Shit. No. Next book on this list is Hell Followed With Us by Andrew Joseph White. I've not read this author before. This one just spoke to me because it's post-apocalyptic and it's supposed to be really, really crazy. YA. It's YA horror. This is about a 16-year-old trans boy named Benji who is on the run from the cult that raised him, the fundamentalist sect that unleashed Armageddon and decimated the world's population. So I want to know what happened, obviously. Oh, he went to college at George Mason. I'm from Virginia, so like I know, oh, he's also from Virginia. Yeah, I think that's awesome, and I really want to read this. And I've heard it's really, really freaking good, and I think it's being adapted into a series. I'm pretty sure that's what I read, that this is one of the books that's being adapted either this year or next year, or they just got rights to have it adapted, is what I'm going to read. And I love it. It's such a soft, I don't know if you can tell, but it's like a little textured. It's so soft. Next I have a translated fiction I got last year, and just things got away from me and I didn't get to it. It's one of the prettiest books I own, because I actually got the UK edition because I thought it was a much better looking book. And that is Butter by Asako Yuzuki, and this is translated by Polly Barton. And it's about a chef who who kills some people and the journalist who tries to get the story, and they end up swapping like recipes, but it's so much more than that. And I'm bummed because I've heard mixed things about it, but I don't care. I really want to read it. I actually like books that have to do with food. Japanese translated fiction is one of my absolute favorite things to read because they're so weird and kooky. Yeah, and I love my cover. Okay, this is another over 1,000 page book. So I think I'm setting myself up for a disaster with this TBR. And that is Shogun by James Clavell. I got this for my birthday quite a few years ago, and the show has gotten so popular and it's gotten nominated for so many things, and I really want to watch the show, but I'm definitely one of those people who likes to read. I like to read the source material, or I try to, and I own this, so I'm like, I might as well. This is set in 17th century Japan, powerful and engrossing, capturing both the rich pageantry and stark realities of life in feudal Japan. Shogun is a critically acclaimed powerhouse of a book. Heart-stopping, edge-of-your-seat action melds seamlessly with intricate historical detail and raw human emotion. I don't know if I've talked about this before. I really like historical fiction, and I rarely read it anymore. Like Pillars of the Earth, like I eat that shit up. So I would love to read this. I'm not even done with my TBR, and there's still like big books to come. So I don't know what have I done? Going back to Litfic, a book I would love to read. It's also part of a series, but I've also read You Don't Have to Read the whole series, like you could stop here if you wanted to. We'll see what happens, but that book is BEARTOWN by Frederick Bachman. I've not read Frederick Bachman before. This book I know for sure has made Taylor and Sid sob on their channels for reading it, so I'm really nervous. And I know this has to do with a small town. Ice hockey is the biggest thing going on, and then something really horrific happens that divides the whole town. And I love books like that. Like, it looks cold and it's wintry, and it has to do with hockey, and it's currently, the low today will be -13. So I think I'm going to read this earlier on this year. I'm definitely going to read this before it hits spring. Then we have a little book. I have to mix up. I have to have some shorter books in here. And next I have I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman. I've seen this book everywhere the last year. I feel like everyone read this book last year, and it's been out since like the 90s. It's translated from French by Ross Schwartz. This came out in 1995, and I think it was reprinted in this cover, and then there's this cover, but I really like this cover. I think it's like really simple and pretty, but I know this is dystopian and like really thought-provoking. I know it's about women who are imprisoned underground, and they have guards, but they literally have no contact with men, and our main character was, I think, born there or was very young when she was there and has never had any type of interaction with men, and like what that would do to a person. And a book I bought last year that I really wanted to read, it just again never happened. I did get the UK edition because it was in paperback, and I love this author, and I will accept no criticism on this author. So take your criticisms elsewhere. And that is Intermezzo by Sally Rooney. Oh, we match! I love Sally Rooney. I really, really do. I have loved every single book by her that I've read. I didn't love Conversations with Friends, but I love her character work and all the simple moments that she gives so much weight to. I just really like her writing. I really, really do. I am so excited for her new release. I feel like you either jive with her writing style or you don't. I really do, so I'm really excited to read this. I know this has to do with two brothers, and I think the death of their father and how each brother handles it, and also the relationships with other people in their lives. This one's over 400 pages. I'm excited. It's so pretty. It's so pretty. Another short read is Pretend I'm Dead by Jen Bagan. This is the only book I haven't read by her yet. And Vacuum in the Dark and Big Swiss, I gave 5 stars. I loved it. I love her writing style. So laugh out loud funny. I've never laughed out loud so hard in a book than those two books. And this one is her first, I think this was her debut. Yeah, it's her first novel. It's about a 24-year-old cleaning lady named Mona who goes on a quest for healing and self-acceptance after her relationship with a lovable junkie goes utterly awry. I think, because I know in Vacuum in the Dark, I think there's a dog in that book that turns up in Big Swiss. So I'm wondering if, I don't know, I wonder if I should have read them in order. Like this, Vacuum in the Dark, and then whatever. I think I'm going to reread her books anyway because I really like them, but I'm excited for this one. It's really short. I bought 2 books Similar to our vlog, I bought 2 different books from an author I don't have any experience. Well, this one particularly I don't have any experience with. I've just seen them everywhere and consistently 5 stars, 4.5, 5 stars, like new favorite fantasy. And they're both standalones. I think you probably already know who I'm talking about. First book is sort of KAIGAN by Emma Wong. I know this is a pretty sprawling fantasy and has to do with a mother and her son, and I know the main character is an older woman, which I love the representation. I want more main characters who are older women, who have experience, who have history, who aren't just naive 17-year-olds with all this duty and responsibility and new powers. I don't know. I want more of that in my fantasy, and I've heard this will give it to me, so I'm really excited. I've heard this is very emotional, great character work. I'm excited to read it. And the other book by Emma Wong that was published before last year but was reprinted in 2024 with a new cover, and that's Blood Over Bright Haven. I'm actually going to be reading this very soon for a big upcoming reading project. And this is dark academia, fantasy, like a really cool magic system, and it's set at this college where the main character, a woman, has been trying to become a high mage, and I know it's more than that, but I think there's some obstacles and other stuff that arises, and maybe she gets in her own way. I don't know, but this was on quite a few of my favorite booktubers' favorite books of the year, and you will see this in an upcoming vlog very soon. Next I have Book Lovers by Emily Henry. This is an Emily Henry. I always do that. I want to say Emily Henry. It's like, I don't know, Emily Henry, it just doesn't flow off the tongue. I don't know. Yeah, I've had this one. I bought this after Happy Place because I loved Happy Place, and then Funny Story came out. I read Funny Story. I just didn't get to this one last year. This is one of her higher rated ones, if I'm not mistaken. And then People We Meet on Vacation. I think they're all being adapted into a movie, so I might as well just start with what I already own. Our main character is a cutthroat literary agent who goes on this girls' trip in North Carolina. She keeps running into another editor, Charlie, who she doesn't have great history with, and I'm sure something happens with them. Yeah, I just can't wait. I've had so much fun. I've had so much fun with her books. So much fun with them, and I cannot wait to read her backlog, and then she has a new release coming out. That's really the only romance I'm looking forward to this year, so this will be part of the romance reading as well. I'm sure a few of you guessed this already because I'd never shut the hell up about Priory of the Orange Tree. Of course I'm going to be reading A Day of Fallen Night by Samantha Shannon. The other prequel, Among the Burning Flowers, is coming out in May or August. It's also part of this universe, this world, and that is The Roots of Chaos. This takes place before the events of Priory of the Orange Tree, following a new group of women. I'm sure there's stuff that comes up, and I'm sure it'll make me, reading this and then reading the other prequel, Among the Burning Flowers, I'm sure that will make me want to reread Priory of the Orange Tree. But I already have so many thick books I want to get through this year, so we'll see. This one, I think, is about the same length. Yeah, it's like over 800 pages, so yeah, I'm so excited to break this spine. I cannot wait. And then I have 2 more Japanese translated fictions. I have What You Are Looking For Is in the Library by Michiko Aoyama. I read Days of the Murasaki Bookshop last year. I loved it. It's so sweet. It's so cozy. It's so for me. And I think this is under healing fiction, and it's about this library where the librarian, somebody comes in saying what they need, and she has a book for that specifically. So I think each chapter is another patron of the library coming in and needing some type of book, some type of help, some type of guidance. Yeah, there's a little cat on it. I got this after I went to Japan, and yeah, I realized I read a lot of translated fiction, but I was really lacking in Japanese translated fiction besides like Murakami. So I really want to grow that library, for lack of a better term, specifically with female authors, so this is one of them. And this is an author I previously read before and really loved her work, and that is All the Lovers in the Night by Mieko Kawakami. This is about a woman in her 30s who's really struggling in life, and I relate super hard to that if you've seen any of my vlogs from last year. I'm really struggling. So I picked this for my IRL book club. We're going to read in March. And it's not super long, and I'm sure it has a lot of great passages. I really like her writing. I read Breast and Eggs a few years ago and really loved that, so I'm excited to get back to more of her work. Oh, I read Heaven too. Heaven made me sob. Heaven made me so upset. I have a feeling this will make me emotional, but hopefully not as emotional as Heaven did. And the very last book I have to talk about, and I don't think this is part of a series, and If it is, okay, then I signed myself up for another series, but I don't think it is. I think it's a standalone. That's The Bright Sword by Lev Grossman. I've not read this author before. They are most well known for the Magician's Trilogy, which I haven't read. But what drew me into this was a novel of King Arthur. So this is set in a fantasy world where King Arthur has passed away and our main character has come to Camelot to become a knight, but he finds out that King Arthur's dead. And I can only imagine what type of adventure-y book this is going to be. King Arthur started my love of medieval historical fiction reads, medieval type of fantasy. I just love, I don't know what it is. I just like that setting so much. Like castles and armor and swords and shields and fighting. Like when a world is set in that, like has that as like the baseline landscape, I'm usually sold. So this again, a very long book, but I do have the audiobook for this, so I'm hoping, almost 700 pages. I'm hoping that this one will be one of the quicker reads because I do have an audiobook for it. I gotta put these books back on my shelves. But that is the 25 books from my physical TBR that I want to prioritize this year. I will be revisiting this towards the end of the year to see progress and see how I'm doing, because I might have to like really kick it into gear like the latter half of the year if I haven't made progress. Are there any books that you're really looking forward to reading this year? What is on your priority TBR? Are there any books that you're really interested in that I mentioned? And if you can't think of anything else to say, put the swords emoji. There's a ton of fantasy on this list. And a stack of books. One or the other. Surprise me. And as always, thank you so much for clicking. Thank you so much for watching. And I'll have a new video for you soon. Bye!